Have you ever sat in the back left corner of a classroom, like your favorite anime character, daydreaming about one day moving to Japan?
I know I have.
Or maybe you don't even watch anime,
NANI?!
but you dream of living in a society so safe that people trust their toddlers to run errands for them. A society with unique culture, beautiful landscapes, and amazing cuisine.
Well, good news. Japan has just announced its digital nomad visa, which means that remote workers and internet entrepreneurs can now live in the land of the rising sun without having to be English teachers or have Japanese ancestry. This is huge if you, like me, have ever dreamed of living in Japan. So what are the requirements for Japan's digital nomad visa? And how does it differ from a traditional tourism visa? How long can you stay in Japan with this new visa? And what other avenues are currently available to you to move to Japan? I'm going to be answering all those questions and more in today's video, so let's get into it. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Ryan and I give people the information they need to move abroad. I've lived in 4 different countries and I've traveled through many others, but one country I've always wanted to go to is Japan.
I grew up being exposed to Japanese culture through watching anime with my older brothers, and ever since watching Toonami as a kid, I've been fascinated with Japan.
There's just something about those hand-drawn 90s anime backgrounds that make me want to live in that space and drink vending machine coffee from a can. So I figured if I'm going to be doing all this research about moving to Japan, I might as well share that information with you guys, because I don't believe in Torii keeping. Get it? A Torii is a Japanese gate, so I'm saying I don't believe in gatekeeping. Anyways, be sure to samurai slice the like button and let's get to the information. Traditionally, to visit Japan, you need a short-term visa or tourist visa, which allows you to enter the country and stay up to 90 days. Luckily, if you live in one of these 67 countries in green, all you need to visit Japan is a valid passport and a ticket for a return flight home. Now, if you don't live in any of the countries in green on this map, you'll need to apply for a single-entry short-term stay visa through your country's Japanese embassy or consulate. Basically, for those who don't know, an embassy is like the headquarters of a foreign government within your country. So that's where Japanese officials and diplomats living in your country work out of. A consulate is like a branch of the embassy. It's a smaller office that provides services to both you and Japanese citizens living in your country. Normally you'd have to make an appointment at your nearest Japanese consulate and go there in person with your required paperwork and pay the visa fee to receive your visa. You need things like a valid passport, your visa application, a certified copy of your birth certificate, a passport photo, proof of your financial situation during the last 6 months provided by your bank, your tax returns, a certificate of employment, and proof of your travel plans like a travel itinerary. I know, that's a lot of work and a lot of printer ink to gather all these documents, but don't fret, because as part of Japan's goal of bringing 60 million tourists to the country by the year 2030, Japan has rolled out its e-visa for these countries. That means you can apply for your visa entirely online and skip the trip to the consulate and the copy center. But you'll need to pay with your credit card online, so beware of potential scammers trying to lure in unsuspecting weebs and creating false web pages. I've linked the official page to apply to your e-visa in the description down below. Now, maybe 3 months isn't enough time for you to get everything you want out of your trip to Japan. Looks like you need a long-term stay visa, my friend. Long-term stay visas allow you to live and work in Japan for up to 5 years. And then after that, they can even be renewed for more time. There are 7 categories of long-term stay visas in Japan, so let's go through them. I think we can skip the official visa and the diplomatic visa because those only apply to government officials and diplomats. The first type of long-term stay visa is the highly skilled professional or HSP visa. Basically, Japan uses a point-based system to determine if you're a highly skilled professional. You must meet the point threshold of 70 points to be considered for an HSP visa. Points are determined by your academic background, your annual salary, and your professional career. Being a young person with a lot of working years left and having a high level of education from a top globally ranked school can earn you a lot of points. For this visa, you need to fall into one of 3 categories: a researcher, an engineer, or a business manager. This visa also allows you to bring your family with you and gives your spouse the ability to work in Japan. The next type of long-term stay visa is a working visa. This visa applies to a bunch of occupations such as professor, artist, journalist, and entertainer, to name a few. This type of visa also encompasses English teachers. For the visa, you'll need to be hired by a Japanese company who can sponsor you. So being able to speak Japanese would be a huge plus for this one, but it's not required. One of the most common jobs for foreigners in Japan that doesn't require you to speak Japanese is working as an English teacher. To teach English in Japan, you'll usually have to be a native English speaker with a TEFL certificate and probably a college degree as well. Another way to get a work visa in Japan is if you work for a company already that has offices in Japan. You can ask to be transferred to the Japanese offices. But if you don't want to be an English teacher and you don't work for a company that has offices in Japan, what are your options? Well, you can apply to Japanese companies remotely, but what many people do is apply once they're already in Japan. What a lot of people do is go to Japan on a short-term visa or a different type of long-term visa and then try to get in-person interviews while they're there. This will improve your chances of being hired because the visa process is long and tedious, and most companies are hiring when there's an immediate demand. So if you're there and able to start that same week, then a company is more willing to hire you and sponsor your visa. So how do you get a long-term visa to get you in Japan so you can apply to Japanese companies? Well, the third type of long-term stay visa for Japan is the general visa. This visa applies to students, unpaid interns, trainees, and people who are traveling to Japan to study cultural activities for prolonged periods of time. So if you want to go to Japan to become a karate master, you can get a visa for up to 3 years as long as you have the funds to pay for your schooling. One common way to get a general visa for Japan is to study Japanese at a Japanese language school. For this route, you'll have to apply and be accepted to a school in Japan, and then they'll handle most of the legal paperwork for you. Of course, you'll have to pay your tuition and housing costs out of pocket, just like any university, but once you're in Japan and learning the language, this will greatly improve your chances of getting a job. By far, the easiest way to move to Japan as a foreigner is to have Japanese ancestry. If one or both of your parents, your grandparents, or your spouse are Japanese, then you can apply for a temporary residence for up to 5 years. So if you want to move to Japan, pick your parents wisely. You can also get a specified visa if you're a recent graduate from a top global university. In that case, you'd be considered a future creation individual. Weird name. And you can go to Japan for up to 2 years to look for a job or prepare to launch a startup in Japan. Another form of specified visa is Japan's working holiday visa. If you're between the ages of 18 and 30 and you're from one of these 29 countries, then you can get a visa to stay and work in Japan for up to 1 year. There are some stipulations, like you can only work part-time and you can't work at bars, nightclubs, or casinos because Japan doesn't want foreigners coming in and promoting immoral behavior. Can't have that. But if I was from one of these eligible countries, I would definitely do this. Japan, what do you have against Americans? We're respectful. Most of us. Imagine getting to live in Japan while supporting your travels by working at a cat cafe. I mean, that would be awesome. Unless you're allergic to cats. The last type of specified visa is a long-term stay visa for sightseeing and recreation. If you can prove you have about $200,000 in the bank, then you can stay in Japan for up to 6 months and then renew for another 6 months. So if you're rich and you want to around in Japan for a year, this is the visa for you. The last type of long-term stay visa before we get to the digital nomad visa is Japan's startup visa. This visa is for foreign entrepreneurs who plan on launching their businesses in Japan. The advantages of this visa for entrepreneurs is that you don't need a physical office location or a ton of capital to start your business in Japan. You just need a solid business plan, and once it's approved by a Japanese state authority, they provide you a 1-year visa as well as connecting you to a network of entrepreneurs and other resources to get your company off the ground. If you do plan on starting a company in Japan or moving there to study for any other reason, you're going to want a good set of luggage to make sure your precious belongings make it there safely.
That's why I'm so glad that Level 8 sent me over a pair of their best-selling suitcases, and I have to say, I wish I had these suitcases when I moved abroad for the first time. They sent me a 28-inch and a 30-inch case from their massive Voyager collection, and these things have all the space you need to move your life to another country. I personally love that I can fit my giant video editing monitor in the 28-inch version, and you can tell these cases are well built. They're leagues above the low-quality suitcases you can buy in big box retail stores. My wife and I bought a couple of those cheap suitcases before moving to Mexico last year, and when we picked up our bags from baggage claim, they were both missing a wheel. Like, how does that even happen? But we had a chance to travel with our Level 8 suitcases on a recent trip, and these things are legit. Not only are they sleek and stylish, but the wheels glide effortlessly, and the wide handle makes for a sturdy grip that doesn't cause the suitcase to wobble and tip over like those other suitcases. Just overall, Level 8 makes a lot of practical design choices with their suitcases. The zippers open and close so smoothly and feel so secure, and they come in snazzy colors so your case will always stick out in the crowd. Level 8 also sent us over some of their packing cubes, and my wife loves these because they can fit and organize all her makeup, and they're just perfect for packing all our garments, gadgets, and grooming essentials. If you want to get some of your own luggage from Level 8, be sure to check out the link in my description and use my code RyanFlynn10 to get 10% off your order. Now let's see what this digital nomad visa is all about.
Okay, let's be honest. Most of us who want to live in Japan don't fall into one of these very specific categories that I mentioned earlier. That's why the newly announced digital nomad visa is so exciting. Just like other digital nomad visas, Japan's digital nomad visa allows you to stay in the country while working remotely. so you don't need to get a job at a Japanese company to live and work in Japan. The only requirements for this visa is that you must be a citizen of one of these 49 designated countries, and you must be able to prove that you have a salary of 10 million yen a year, or roughly $64,000. Apart from that, you must have your own health insurance, so if you're a freelancer with your own health insurance, or if your employer provides you with health insurance, then you're good to go. And it's on a 6-month rotating schedule, meaning you can stay for 6 months and then you have to wait 6 more months before you can apply for another digital nomad visa. I think the 6-month limit strikes an interesting balance between the long-term and the short-term visas, because it's twice as long as the normal tourist visa, giving you a lot more time to explore and integrate into the culture. But you're still limited by the fact that you don't have a residency card, so you can't really lease an apartment, and you're pretty much stuck to Airbnbs and hotels for 6 months, which would probably be really expensive unless you plan on living in a capsule hotel for 6 months. This visa is still in its infancy, so it'll be interesting to see how it develops over time, and how the influx of digital nomads will affect Japan. Part of what has made Japan such a respectful and culturally significant country is its history of isolationism. But as the country looks to open its borders to get a post-pandemic boom in tourism, will it be possible to preserve the country's long-held traditions? We've already seen that as Japanese tourism has risen, so has the amount of disrespectful tourists. In fact, it has gotten so bad that Japan has had to ban tourists in Kyoto's Geisha district. But if you made it this far into the video, then you're definitely not the type of tourist that Japan has to worry about, and if your dream is to one day live in Japan, just remember: never give up! Hopefully this video helped you determine your options to move to Japan. If it did, be sure to hit the like button and send this video to a fellow Japanophile. Thank you to my Patreon members for supporting my work. If you want a full Japanese visa guide in the form of a PDF, then I'll be posting that for my paid members over on Patreon, so I'll leave the link in the description down below if you want to check that out. Good luck moving to Japan, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, give travel. Peace.